Hello, and welcome to Outside the Zeitgeist, an opinion podcast presented by Mook Media. Please be aware that the opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of the host platform. Outside the Zeitgeist is funded by people like you, for some reason. And now, here are your hosts, Greg and Charles.
All right, welcome to Outside the Zeitgeist, episode 17. I am your resident misanthrope, Charles.
I'm your resident skeptic, Greg.
And say hello once again in the studio, Red.
Hello, darlings.
Cheers, Greg.
Cheers, Charles.
Don't forget to subscribe, share, comment, and most importantly, dislike the video so you can express that the feeling is mutual.
Oh my god, and yes, that is a pizza in the background. My fat ass is hungry. You all can deal with it. And so let's get on to the nightmare fuel. And the first thing we're going to start with is we got to get our earphones on here.
Oh my god. Not again.
Yep. All right, so do that. And here we go. We're going to listen to the press briefing. Hold on, I got to pull up my notes really. Where'd the mouse go? There it is.
It's not real.
It isn't real. Where is it? Okay.
Good afternoon. I have a few elements.
I can barely hear this.
Get started. I know we also have
There we go.
A bilateral engagement just after this, so we'll conclude before that. Let me start by saying that the United States condemns in the strongest terms the barrage of rocket attacks fired into Israel in recent hours. This is an unacceptable escalation. While we urge de-escalation on all sides, we also recognize Israel's legitimate right to defend itself, to defend its people and its territory. It is critical for all sides to ensure calm and de-escalate tensions and avoid violent confrontations.
Okay, now one thing I used to tell my students is pay attention to what's being said, how it's being said, and what's not being said. So now, let's see. I gotta go, oh wait.
You gotta skip over.
There we go. There we go. I see the timestamp.
Up, a little bit before.
There we go. Good enough.
I want to ask about East Jerusalem, but let's talk about what you said about the principle of self-defense. Does that in any way apply to the Palestinians? Do they have a right to self-defense? Do Palestinians have a right to self-defense?
In broadly speaking, Saeed, we believe in the concept of self-defense. We believe it applies to any state. I don't think that. I certainly wouldn't want my words to be construed as.
I understand. I want to ask you. I don't want to harp on this either, but the Israelis killed 13 people just now. Including maybe 5 or 6 children. Do you condemn that? Do you condemn the killing of children?
Saeed,
I'm asking. Do you condemn the killing of Palestinians?
I don't know. The audio cut out. Are they trying to censor it?
No, they're hearing it, but we're not
I
hearing it.
understand.
It's probably the cable.
I understand we don't have independent confirmation.
Yeah, because
facts on the
I got a
ground.
janky setup.
To get into reports that are just emerging. Obviously, the
There we
deaths
go.
of civilians, be they Israeli or Palestinians, are something we would take very seriously.
Okay. Now, you recognize that East Jerusalem is occupied Palestinian territory. And as such, Israel has no legal claim whatever. The Israeli Supreme Court weighing on this is really absurd because, all the documents are there, the Jordanian document, the Ottoman document, and so on. But, you are really unwilling to hold Israel responsible for what's going on in Sheikh Jarrah. You have to look at where this whole thing started, correct?
And that's why we've spoken about what was set to take place in Sheikh Jarrah. As you know, Saeed, we issued a statement on Friday. The White House issued a statement yesterday in conjunction with the readout of National Security Advisor Sullivan's call with his counterpart. We have been clear about where we stand in Sheikh Jarrah. We've been clear.
Okay, I think that's good enough. So the whole thing there, for those who didn't know, apparently there's a little skirmish going on between the Palestinians and Israel once again. And I'm sure it has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that Netanyahu's trial started again.
Again? I didn't know anything about this.
Oh, well, there's a corruption trial about Netanyahu, and I'm pretty sure it also doesn't have anything to do with the word that's been going around that Netanyahu was promising favors for positive coverage. So But
typical politics.
Yeah, so I mean, it was very interesting there that he was unwilling to say anything. He wasn't unwilling. He was unwilling to say specifically Palestinians had the right to defend themselves like anybody else.
I mean, in my mind, it's a right of anybody to be able to defend themselves.
Right. Yeah.
If you're being attacked for unjustified reasons, or justified reasons, I would say, you should be able to defend yourself because that is your right as a person.
Yeah, and you know, I've talked about. Well, I don't think I've talked about it on the show before, but Israel basically has become the Fourth Reich. I mean, you know.
Has it?
Yeah, I mean, well, like I wouldn't be able to marry Red in Israel because she's Jewish and I'm not. You know, that's for starters.
That sounds pretty racist.
Yeah, well, ethnicist.
I didn't know you cared.
But yeah, I mean, and a lot of people that have gone to Gaza or Palestine and, you know, looking to see what is being done to the people by Israel, and they're just horrified. There was actually Kim Iverson was talking about what's it called? She went to visit Palestine or the Gaza Strip, and while she was there, she met up with an Israeli contractor who wanted to help out the Palestinian people and, you know, try and get homes built for them that were destroyed and whatnot. And he was so horrified by what he saw and had to deal with just to get homes for people that he just started denouncing Israel after that. But meanwhile, you know, when you have things like the BDS movement, the boycott, divestment sanctions, which is the same thing that was done for, you know, in fighting the apartheid state of South Africa, somehow it's wrong now because it's Israel. And somehow it's justified, even though you have legislation here in America in different states that prevent people from actually having work or getting a business or having a contract with the government agency if they have participated or expressed the BDS ideas. And it's something that still gets suppressed, you know, suppressed. Anything negative about what Israel's doing with the fourth, like what I call the Fourth Reich.
You're saying we're not allowed free speech?
Yeah, well, apparently not. We're not allowed free speech whatsoever. But what we are allowed...
Oh, more clips.
We can die for our country. Yep, I got another video. Let's switch this back here. And hopefully I won't tap the thing again.
I'm just gonna... Hooray, everybody's a cartoon.
Yeah. Cell shading, it's like the Wind Waker all over again. But shittier.
This is the story of a soldier who operates your nation's Patriot missile defense systems.
I love how they're called Patriot missiles. Let me turn that down a little bit.
It begins in California, with a little girl raised by two moms.
I like how one looks like a young Bill Gates.
I can't hear you. What did you say?
I said I like how one looks like a young Bill Gates.
I didn't notice that. I just thought
Although I
one
had a
looked like
fairly
Hey, see the
typical
one on the left?
childhood,
Yeah, I can see that
took
now.
ballet, played violin, I also marched for equality. I like to think I've been defending freedom from an early age.
Let's see. Let me see.
When I was 6
lower
years
this a little
old,
bit.
one of my moms had an accident
There we
that left
go.
her paralyzed. Doctors said she might never walk again. But she tapped
Really
into my
butch
family's
Bill
pride
Gates.
to get back on her feet.
Or wait, I mean really butch woman
Eventually
rather.
standing at the altar to marry my other
You
mom.
said Bill Gates is not a woman?
With such powerful role models, I finished
Maybe I'm
high
onto
school at
something.
the top of my class, and then attended UC Davis, where I joined a sorority full of other strong women.
Hold on, I gotta
At
pause
its
it right there.
graduation appro-
You know, everybody here has been to college, one of us more than once. And has either of you known sororities to have strong young women?
Strong in what sense?
In the sense that I'm pretty sure they're alluding to in this video.
Well, physically, I haven't known any sororities that had strong women. Mentally, I haven't known terribly many sororities that had strong women.
Yeah.
Mostly the women, I would say, that are mentally strong or physically strong don't belong to sororities. Typically, they belong to clubs, which are distinctly different than sororities.
Yeah, I mean, I think sororities, and I just think like Revenge of the Nerds and all the waifs you would see in a sorority, and all the porn, like the sorority indoctrination porn.
Look, hold on. We haven't been to college in quite some time.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure sororities are completely different.
They're probably completely worse. Because that's what everything does, is everything gets worse.
Worse.
Hold on. Red, were you in a sorority?
No. Very, very no. It's like, exclude me from the pie line. Pass. No, I'd rather go to the frats and drink their beer for free.
The
That
pie
was
line
awesome.
or the pie line or the plug line?
I just bypassed the lines. I just showed up with my red party cup and said, "Oh, I'm an English lit major, huh?" And I got free alcohol, and it was awesome. And then I left with my friends to make sure I wouldn't get raped in the ass or something.
Oh. All right, let's finish off this video.
I began feeling like I'd been handed so much in life. A sorority girl stereotype.
I wonder why.
I'd spent my life around inspiring women. But what had I really achieved on my own? One of my sorority sisters was studying abroad in Italy. Another was climbing Mount Everest.
Leaving your other mother behind.
My own challenge. And after meeting with an army recruiter, I found it. A way to prove my inner strength and maybe shatter some stereotypes along the way.
Yeah, that women can kill people too.
See, I think this is trying to get sorority girls to join the army for some reason.
I answered my calling.
I'm not certain that's the best call from an intelligence standpoint, but I could be completely wrong about these people.
So, I mean, I gotta say, I am all for what this video is trying to do. It's trying to get all those people in that are, oh yeah, social justice and all that stuff. I love this. I can take the earphones off now. We're done.
So,
but I love this. No, I love this. You know why? Because, well.
Hold on. Let me take a guess.
Okay.
I think it's a pretty dark but comedic point.
Uh-huh.
By getting all of these kinds of people to join the army, we find a faster way to eliminate them from getting into the gene pool.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Cannon fodder for the win.
This is it, army, right?
Yeah, she's
And
army.
we know the army is the cannon fodder.
Well, depends. You know what army stands for, right?
Wait, hold up.
Infantry?
No. There's going to be a good one here.
This is a military thing. If you haven't been to the military, you probably never heard it.
See, the only thing I can come up with, now I'm sure you have something completely different, but the only thing I can come up with is always remember, and then I have two extra things, and I'm trying to come up with a bad acronym that leads to
Aren't ready for Marines yet.
No, there you go.
So, in the military, we all brag on each other. But once again, I still want to point out that the National Guard and the puddle jumpers being sent over abroad to fight in the wars.
But question, when you reach the level, regardless of the branch you join, of special forces, doesn't that kind of like they're all a very elite self-select group?
Well,
of course, different skill sets, but
Army
elite is elite.
Army Special Forces and Navy SEALs, they're not like a level you reach. They're a different training subset.
Of course.
It's there's a lot of different things that go into it, but I'm all for recruiting the cannon fodder. However, unfortunately, I do know somebody that is young and wants to join the military and the Marines, and I think I would have to point this to him and say, hey, you probably don't want to do this because these are the people you're probably going to be around, and they're all going to die, leaving you alone on the battlefield.
Look, I think you just
is it possible that the basic training is going to shoo the lacier, softer people out to winnow them out?
So, in theory, however, they don't tell people that you have 6 months once you go off to basic training to, with a 6-month window to change your mind and get out. There's a lot of ways out of the military once you've enlisted. I'm not sure how it is for officer. I know many officers, you just resign your commissions at certain points. But there are certain things to take into account. But this is not stuff that they want to tell you because they want you there. They want the bodies. That's all they care about is having the bodies. Because, it's like Russia during World War II. You just throw more bodies at people, and if they die, so what?
Provided they have an IQ of 80 or greater.
Well, I don't know. If the way the way the Russian troops were getting slaughtered, part of it too was they didn't have the equipment that they needed to. Two guys. One guy gets a rifle. That movie, Enemy at the Gates. One guy gets a rifle, and the other one gets the ammo cartridge.
See, I'm just thinking to myself, if you really want to know what you're getting into, you should just watch Starship Troopers.
Yes.
Love
Starship
the book.
Troopers is
Love the
great.
movie.
It's
great,
a
great movie. Great political message.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows you, I think, a good idea of what you're getting into.
Yeah. So, I'm all for this. Let the stupids get weeded out. I mean, they're not really gonna forward any goal of the empire. They're really just gonna die off. But it's just so funny how many different ways like this whole message of who people born this way are supposed to be considered one way or another, and how it gets used and abused by anybody. And speaking, what do you got, Red?
Well, this is not the only way they're getting winnowed out. There's the behavioral aspect that the leftists are just not having kids at the same rate, like way below replacement rate.
I've heard that.
Plus, there's also the consideration of all these people taking medications to block puberty and basically self-sterilizing. It's a tragedy per person. But as far as there is a silver lining in that. Great, stupid doesn't breed at least through that channel.
We're as much as there's nightmare fuel going on. We are in the Darwin Awards era. Probably heavier than ever. But now you're talking about people that are not having kids. There's actually, that's not really a left-right thing. That's always been a thing of intelligence. It's typically intelligent people don't have children, and stupid people breed like fucking
they're
crazy.
Also the religious, right? The religious generally tend to have more children, and there are intelligent religious people out there. You may not agree with them, but they breed buckets more.
There are
the
exceptions.
Amish doubling up population every 20 years. I say, give me more Amish.
There are
They
exceptions.
do make good cookies and donuts and
Right?
lemonade, as the
Awesome
Amish markets
barns.
keep telling me.
But yeah, also
But pie's not bad either.
at the same time too, with the transsexual, what surge in the transsexual, what's it called, promotion. It's one thing when you're when people that are have experience and know about what's going on, and they get kind of roped into it. Like I know somebody that came out eventually to say they were transsexual, but I wanted to talk to him, not to I never got to talk to him, but I didn't want to dissuade them. I just want to find out if it was actually their idea or society and whatnot, because this person was still kind of young and whatnot. But you have that happening to a lot of children as well, right? With Canada and in certain states where where they're endorsing kids having gender swap surgery, or sexual organ swap surgery. What do you got, Red?
The vulnerable people, right? Because frequently these are people who are experiencing other hardships by way of existential crises, psychological hardships, and just generally being young and going through the growing up experience can be really, really hard.
Yeah.
So it's not for some people. It's not good enough. Gay's not good enough. You gotta swap the underwear. Yeah.
It's different when people are vulnerable by their own choice and have vulnerability inflicted upon them. But speaking of gay, James Charles is in the news again. So for those of you who don't know, James Charles is this guy that does all kinds of makeup promotions. And he's had incidences before where apparently he likes to talk to minors, or at least that's the allegations. But on the flip side of things, he's got a disability discrimination lawsuit against him. And I'm totally not talking about this topic for clicks or anything like that. But no, it is interesting. Because on one hand, where he has these allegations that seem credible about him doing things that may not be kosher, but on the other hand, you have this situation where you have one of his employees, his name was Rockland, apparently, at least I think that's the name, apparently she got hit on the head or something like that, had a concussion, and he didn't want her working while she was recovering from the concussion, if I remember correctly. So she decided to sue for disability discrimination. However, this is also a person that has sued one of her employers before, claiming that she wasn't getting paid. I really wanted to bring this up because it's the whole idea of, for those of you that I might actually give a shit about, which are none, but it's the whole thing of, this person may have done this thing, but it doesn't mean that it's okay to go ahead and do something else to them. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, how this case is playing out. But meanwhile, we got all this, we got all this other stuff to pay attention to, right? Like
Tons.
CNN. Everybody loves CNN, right?
Yay.
CNN bullshit? What?
Yeah, I mean, so, what's that guy's name with the gray hair, the gay guy?
I don't
Anderson
know. I don't pay
Cooper?
attention to
Anderson
CNN.
Cooper, yeah.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting his name because I just call him Vanderboy because
Vanderboy.
because for those of you that don't know, he's part of the Vanderbilt family. So
Is he?
yeah,
Yes, he is.
I
Gloria
know that.
Vanderbilt's son.
Yeah. So he came out and he was having a discussion with
Gloria is
somebody.
such a lofty
He came out? Wait, really? Holy shit. All this time I thought he was a flamer.
No, but he was.
Not straight.
Wow. Anderson, we support you in coming out. I think that's awesome.
So
Flame on.
It's great.
So apparently he was having a conversation, and this person was questioning Dr. Fauci. Or, I'm sorry, proper name, Dr. Fawcett, because we like to use proper names here. And Dr. Fawcett, who has been, lying, telling you mixed messages one way or another, has apparently some financial connections to that laboratory in Wuhan. But Vanderboy came out and basically said that questioning Dr. Fawcett is disrespectful to him.
So it's questioning me. In fact, I even think questioning you, as terrible of a person as you are, is disrespectful. Red, would you not agree that questioning you, of all people, the highest of Reds,
I
is most
disagree with
disrespectful?
everybody, and I question the two of you in return.
I question my sanity and why I'm here, but that's beyond it. But so yeah, I mean, we're not, it's more of the whole, you're not supposed to question anything, especially not about the vaccines. But in speaking of the vaccines,
wonderful, wonderful stuff has come out. If you weren't encouraged enough by Krispy Kreme, by, I think Chipotle was one of them, by the many organizations that said that you could get free food or discounts or money or this or that, Ohio is letting you know that you could be one of 5 lucky people to win $1 million by getting a vaccine.
So
Now,
to enter the lottery, you need to get vaxxed.
the doom
well,
spell.
specifically, the Ohio Governor Mike DeWine outlined a plan Tuesday night. He says he offered 5 $1 million prizes to adults who have been vaccinated and 5 full-ride scholarships to state schools to teens who get vaccinated, which, by the way, is the next group of people they want to sell the vaccine to getting, because we've already run out of adults who really actually want to get the vaccine.
They've already been doing that, though. I mean, they've come out and said kids don't need to get the doom spell. They've come out and said that the doom spell, and this comes straight from the manufacturer, that the doom spell doesn't prevent the spread. And they've come out and said that kids are least likely to get infected.
Yes, I mean, they've said all these things, which makes you believe that you shouldn't need to get a child a vaccine.
No,
at all.
but that means you need to give a child a vaccine. What are you talking about, Greg?
Oh, I'm sorry. I talk too much logic. I try to make sense of
Logic
statements.
is not allowed here.
Absolutely not. Additionally, with regards to all this wonderful stuff revolving around the virus, I've seen a huge rise in just the pollution of masks. I've seen many photos. I've walked around the streets. I see the masks all over the place. People have them. They're topping trash cans. They're all over the fucking place. And the same people that would have me believe that the environment is such a serious issue are saying nothing about the fact that masks are, if not 100%, mostly made of plastics, and plastics relate to oil. And so the entire thing is one giant environmental disaster waiting to occur. It's already affecting to the point where it's like we ramped up production of all these things because someone said first we didn't need to have them, then backtracked live on TV and said some people thought we didn't need them or something like that, and now we do need them.
So where would you question the what would comparison be between the piles of masks and the piles of AOL install discs?
I think the AOL install discs are going to be drastically eclipsed by the end of this statement.
Okay, well, what about the piles of masks and the piles of Samsung or Google Android phones and iPhones because of planned obsolescence?
Because not everybody could afford a phone, and because they had an expense attached to it, and for the same amount of money, you can get at least 12 dozen of these stupid masks. I'm gonna say the masks are winning. They also fly, unlike phones.
What do you got, Red?
When Gregory's done, I wanted to ask about all those drink straws. Gosh, which is a greater crisis?
Don't even get me started on the drink straws. I've read into that, and the amount of pollution it causes just to make the paper straws is ridiculous. It's absolutely obnoxious because the plastic straws are not being cut down on, right? They're still making them by the millions or billions, and then they're also including in that they're also producing paper straws. So you got these companies that are double dipping because they're making both plastic and paper straws, and they're not cutting the production because the company. How many restaurants have you walked into that offer you paper straws?
None.
Exactly.
Not the restaurants I go to. I avoid the paper straw restaurants.
Yeah, I mean, I there was actually a paper recycling plant on one of the bases I was stationed at, and I had to drive by it to get to the pier where the boat was, and it smelled like fucking all hell.
There's a lot of pollution that comes from those plants.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing too is you'll have a lot of these people like, oh, gotta protect my environment now. Let me stream my porn in 4K, not realizing or being aware at least that, you know, the internet is a huge pollution source itself.
Yeah, you know what's funny about that? Really funny about that. Did you hear Elon Musk is no longer accepting Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Because apparently Bitcoin is causing coal and fossil fuel pollution, except the same factories that make his cars
do the
and the
thing.
Batteries cause even more pollution. I mean, where is this statement coming from?
Yeah, but the internet in and of itself is like not only a huge source of energy consumption, which means pollution, but it also consumes a shit ton of potable water. I mean, you're talking for the entire internet for one day. Let's see. Let me do a rough guesstimate here.
Don't think too hard.
I'm gonna say that the internet as a whole consumes probably at least 150 million gallons of potable water per day.
That's insane.
What do you got, Red?
Well, I'm kind of wondering, you know, that's going to be mitigated, I imagine, when there's transition to new nuclear energy, the so-called Generation 4 that take the fission waste products of the earlier technology power plants and convert that into much cleaner, much cheaper, much more accessible energy. We just need to kind of like get over that regulatory hump to really work into that Generation 4 space, is my understanding.
So I've worked with nuclear power, and there's a lot of good reason why we have a lot of regulations regarding nuclear power. I am interested in just seeing the the newer technologies that are coming out, especially these reactors that can operate, be critical at pressure without having to pressurize the system, which would be a huge change in things. But I still have many questions regarding that. A lot of people, you know, when it comes to nuclear power, it's just like anything else. I mean, it has its strengths and its weaknesses. But one thing that's definitely a weakness of nuclear power is having a lot of power generation concentrated in one point because of things like Fukushima, you know, Chernobyl, and, you know, 3 Mile Island. I watched the videos that was exploring the core of 3 Mile Island a few years afterwards, and that was actually a testament to how good the safety features were in nuclear reactors that were built back in the day, because for the amount of damage that reactor took, the safety features of the plant actually prevented a whole shitload of pollution from spilling out. I mean, the pollution people only got was equivalent to smoking a pack of cigarettes in a day.
Now, as much as I think nuclear power is a safe resource, with as long as the right procedures are used.
Yeah, I mean,
and the right technology too, the updated technology.
Nuclear power is safer the more disseminated it is.
As much as I think it's a safe and reliable resource that we've been manipulating and using for quite some time now. My experience with Fallout 4, 3, and any of the other franchises tells me that there is a wonderful post-apocalyptic world waiting for us, and I just don't see the left getting on board for this post-apocalyptic world where we have, mutants, super mutants,
What,
specifically.
You're anxious to see the rad roaches?
Look, I want to get the rad scorpions. I want to get the Mirelurks because I love crab, and I'm certain that these Mirelurks taste
Oh, you're
great.
such a bad Jew.
Look, don't even get me started on the
The
mutant
trafe
pigs.
Jew.
The mutant pigs in that game, they taste incredible.
I'm sure.
Very trafe, Gregory. Very trafe.
What else? You had something else that you want to talk about?
I do. Wonderful stuff just coming out. I heard earlier today, I read an article about 124, I believe, retired generals and admirals coming out and talking about how the election, they were questioning the election in an open letter, and they also were questioning Biden's mental and physical capabilities. And the media at large seems to not like the fact that they did this.
Oh, yeah, because it's not like people were doing that with Trump and all.
Sure.
You know.
No one has brought up the 25th Amendment.
And we must not talk poorly about Vladimir Putin puppet number 2.
So, I mean, this is a very interesting thing. This is the second country where I've seen generals talking about very...
pointed warnings.
Yes.
Very pointed warnings, because
warnings.
this follows the second letter in France with enlisted and retired military leadership warning of Macron, ease off the globalism because it may well be coup time, and that should be taken seriously because the French do revolution like woof.
Well, I mean,
bloody business.
I think you still have the Gilets jaunes movement going on in France despite all the lockdowns and everything.
Oh, there's a lot of protests. I saw
Yellow vest, baby.
Luke Radowski covering those things a while back, and
but
they still go strong.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, there was absolutely no shenanigans in the 2020 election whatsoever. I mean, the fact that Arizona, like these municipalities in Arizona, decided to delete the files that were requested by the state government has absolutely nothing to do with anything.
Oopsie.
Are you telling me they deleted files that they're supposed to keep on record for 48 months or 2 years or some number of years?
It's nothing
longer?
the way that Pennsylvania got rid of the documents confirming the receipt of ballots and the enclosing envelopes. That was also a little oopsie.
Remember, the Time magazine article only said that the media was being manipulated by a cabal. It didn't say that the government was being manipulated by a cabal at all. And of course, we have to believe the Time magazine article in that they all decided to go their separate ways and ride off into the sunset, like John Wayne or Gary Cooper or whatever.
Do you think it's Lex Luthor?
Remember, they fortified the election.
Yeah, they
to make
fortified
certain the right candidate was brought into.
It was fortified in Pennsylvania by loosening signature and other validation requirements, and in other jurisdictions.
I mean, the thing is, when we talk about elections and voting and whatnot, yeah, well, I just had a cock in my mouth, but...
Don't knock it till you try it, Charles. I approve.
You've seen me eat a chorizo.
I know, it was frightful. I had to go to the other room. Take shelter.
But I mean, the whole thing is that there are legitimate arguments for both sides. There are legitimate arguments that... ID requirements and whatnot does provide a barrier from voting, but there are legitimate arguments that allowing anybody to vote, causes fraud, right? Allows people to vote more than once and whatnot. There are legitimate arguments, and this is, basically what I say is the core of how I am. Is that, okay, we get all the arguments on the table, and then we tentatively start taking steps in one way or another and adjust as we need to, or stay the course as we need to.
What you got,
I mean, the motivation should be to have a transparent, auditable process. Never mind rooting for one party or the other. Because if we cannot validate the election occurred, and this is how the ballots were treated, and this is how they were counted, and we can validate that because of these evidences, I'm rooting for a transparent, auditable process.
Well, the problem with the full transparency of the process is that you do get people that are bribed for their vote. I mean, that's why
it's not transparent now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you have laws in many states that you cannot photograph your ballot once you've filled it in. So this has been something that's been done before. I mean, even with threats, not only incentives but through threats as well.
I mean, the U.S. Postal Service right now holds a patent for operating an election system through blockchain. Right now.
It's more interesting because of the fact that we discussed on a previous episode that they're spying on our social media. Very, very interesting stuff.
That's not happening.
But the important thing is that the outcome that some people want is the outcome that happens, right? Just like the Chauvin trial, which there is still news going on about. So apparently, you have this Dr. Mitchel, who engaged in practices that seem like witness intimidation for both the prosecution and the defense by writing op-eds after they testified. In the case of the defense's expert witness, Dr. Mitchel apparently also wrote to have his background looked into and possibly his license taken away. And on the flip side, you have you have the judge wanting to give Chauvin a longer sentence, and the federal government going after Chauvin and all the officers that were there as well.
It's funny about that because I'd heard that the DOJ was not going to go after.
They were
Chauvin
not going to go after him if the trial came out with a guilty verdict. The
Right.
DOJ
Now I heard that they are going after him,
Right.
which is very interesting.
Now, the double jeopardy clause in the Constitution doesn't necessarily apply here because I forget what the reason was.
different jurisdictions, different the federal versus state.
Right, there we go.
But there's another consideration that before the criminal state trial, there was a settlement on the part of the city for many tens of millions of dollars, which, how I can't believe that they permitted. I mean, obviously, to me it has the look of permitting the civil settlement to become public first before the criminal, thereby shading the entire nation. So where could you possibly have a fair trial?
Regardless of what you think of Chauvin and the whole Derek Floyd situation, you do have to realize that there is the situation where you have one side with a lot of money and the other side not with a lot of money, right? Chauvin has gotten his funding through crowdsourcing, I believe. I can't remember, but
I don't know.
I think it's the.
But that's a strong statement. I mean, I feel like that's actually a really good thing because you see that there are people that are willing to step up to support something they believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And just because they step up to support the funding doesn't mean that they're supporting him. They could simply be stepping up for process integrity and evening the scales so that we can have a system that does operate at the best level possible with really good representation.
Right. I mean, and that's the whole thing with the what's it called, the Rittenhouse trial as well. I mean, people, right, and that's what we've said before as well, is that it's important that people get a fair trial because we want to have a reliable process. But speaking of people and cases, another celebrity bullshit that's going on. So apparently there's this YouTube guy named Boogie2988.
Yep.
I've seen him before. He's generally a nice guy. People like him, but there was this one guy that was harassing him, and apparently Boogie gave this guy the line of why don't you come here and settle it face to face or something like that. And some people are calling that as an invitation, but in some ways you can think of that otherwise. But the problem with Boogie is that when this guy came to his house, he pulled a gun on him, and Boogie decided, I'm going to fire a warning shot into the air.
You can't do that, not into the air.
Is he following in Biden's advice?
Oh, my God.
That's not something you do. That is reckless endangerment with a firearm. That is a crime. But it's another one of those situations.
All you got to do is in court, you got to say, look, Biden told me that all I need is a shotgun, and all I have to do is fire 2 warning shots into the air, and that will scare away whoever's coming after me, and I'm good.
Now, apparently it is legal to fire warning shots in certain areas of the country, like in Vermont, I believe it's legal to fire a warning shot in the air to chase off a bear.
That's
and
different
so forth.
than a person.
Right.
Person can rationalize.
Right. But it's the point of that he fired the gun into the air. That's the problem because you don't know where the bullet lands and the bullet can kill somebody, and that's where the reckless endangerment charge comes in. But Yeah, well, speaking of like celebrities, anybody hear what's going on with Amber Heard?
I heard that there's stuff going down,
Mm-hmm.
and I have been off and on just paying attention to the whole thing with Amber Heard, and it's stupid and something I don't care about, so I just don't look into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just interested in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation just because I mean
I feel bad for Johnny Depp.
Well, yeah, but they're two like not great people, and this is just I mean it's like celebrity fucking brawl or whatever. But so apparently, well, the whole thing that's going on is apparently there's investigations or charges being brought up on Amber Heard because the whole what's it called when she called the police and said the home was a wreck. So apparently the police video footage, like the cop cam footage, got released showing the house, and it was fucking immaculate, nothing there. So she's being brought up on perjury charges, it looks like. But Johnny Depp, still doesn't have a job. Amber Heard, I forget what her status is.
He job? He's got money.
Well, no, but he was supposed to film the newest Fantastic Beasts.
No, he got cut from that.
Right, he got cut from that, and Amber Heard was still going on, and it's a whole hashtag believe all women.
Defamation.
What do you got?
I'm kind of suggesting an unorthodox solution here, and have Marilyn Manson date Amber Heard and take care of it that way.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Thank you very much.
That is hilarious.
That's go date Marilyn.
This is why I don't pay attention to celebrity gossip and shit.
Yeah,
like this. It's unimportant.
I try not to, but when it comes to stuff like this, with the whole people picking sides and the culture war is important because
Is it really though?
yes, because it helps define our political landscape. It is
correct.
One of the leading ways that our political landscape.
The adage
I'm disgusted by the fact that it does that.
The adage that politics is downstream from culture. I'm repeating that. I don't know where I got it from, but it does seem to ring true.
Well,
I like to cite, or at least understand where my thinking comes from. Some of it I originate, some of it I borrow. I try to practice awareness of that, so that at least I'm not a completely empty automaton.
I don't know.
I try not to be.
Well, that actually gets into more of what our topic is. Well, we'll get into in a few minutes. So we got a couple more things in the nightmare fuel. So apparently McDonald's is offering $50 to people just to go in for a job interview. And I am 100% sure it has absolutely nothing to do with Biden saying that if people have a job offer or the ability to work, that they should be taken off unemployment.
Okay, so you're telling me I could right now change my name to 6 different people, come up with 6 bogus pieces of information, go to 6 different McDonald's,
and probably
make $300?
Yeah, and probably spend more than $300.
I would suggest
no. There's 6 McDonald's within 2 miles of here, man. Come on.
To protect yourself from potential charges of identity fraud, make sure that you assert that you're an illegal.
Hold up.
This is not legal advice, by the way.
Whoa. I just gotta interject here.
Yeah?
How did you know that?
You had the look, buddy. The look.
It's my tie that gave me away, isn't it?
It's a shady tie.
But yeah, I mean, even with unemployment benefits and whatnot, there are people who are still desperate, and there are people that are afraid to go to work because they believe that they're going to get sick and die from the disease and whatnot. But
the CDC just said we could now go inside and outdoors without masks, fully vaccinated.
Don't believe the CDC. Don't question things. Vanderboy said not to.
Moving on. Colonial Pipeline.
I don't know what that is. I have never heard it before.
Wonderful stuff. I am amazed the amount of information that I've heard from the media in regards to this situation in this week alone, and if it is astounding. Earlier this week, they said they weren't going to pay. Now I'm hearing that they did pay. Not only did they pay close to $5 million, which is not a large amount of money for a corporation like this.
That money was certainly not used to clean up any spill anywhere that might or might not be in Hunterdon, North Carolina.
But it was done in Bitcoin. Of all things. It wasn't even actual cash. It was Bitcoin.
Wait, was this before or after Elon Musk said we're not accepting that anymore?
Well, the statements that they paid in Bitcoin came out after the fact that Elon Musk said he's no longer accepting Bitcoin.
What do you got, Red?
I have another unorthodox solution.
Okay. We're all about those.
Yeah. My unorthodox solution is to protect infrastructure and federal networks and critical networks. Since there was no voter fraud, is to have Dominion take care of all that jazz. Because there was no election fraud, right, NSA? Right? I say give it to Dominion, let them fix it.
It's funny you mentioned the NSA.
We need that Green New Deal bill with all the smart, electrical grids and all that stuff.
Green New
It's really funny you mentioned the NSA because
really?
I've heard rumor that the hack that caused this ransomware to occur was the direct result of NSA released tools that the Chinese got, or something in that regard.
It's always the Chinese,
all over the dark
web.
It's
all over there. So, that being said, if this hack was caused by the NSA, because I can't say it was or wasn't, I've just heard rumor that it was, and we believe that they used this ransomware using these tools, how do we not question the election itself?
Well,
the fact that these tools have existed for quite some time.
I've been told that we had the most secure election process in the history of ever. So give it to Dominion. They'll fix this jazz in two snaps.
Red.
Yeah,
Red.
yo.
This particular election could have been the most secure, as well as being the least secure at the same time.
I'm just aping what I've been told.
If Burger King has the healthiest burger of all burgers,
I've seen that burger.
Okay, and McDonald's has the second healthiest burger, and we both know that Burger King and McDonald's have both very unhealthy burgers when it comes to fast food. Okay, both statements are true at the same time. So if someone tells me that we had the most secure election, I just believe that our elections are always very unsecure.
Well, that's why I'm rooting.
Slightly less unsecure.
Let me cite back. That's why I'm rooting for a transparent, auditable a voting process with integrity and with validations of identity. And because we had such a secure election cycle, Dominion, come bail us out here.
And that's also why I tell your roommate's dog that he's the best dog in the whole house.
Oh, because he's the only dog in the house. Red, these are impossible things to do. This is stuff that you're talking about changing the system.
I told you, unorthodox, dude.
You're talking about making drastic change. We would never do that.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Come on.
We're not allowed to do drastic change, even while we're
we should not deconstruct our systems to the point where we are dismantling them. I meant to say destroying them to instill. I don't know. Do we have a plan after that? I mean, we don't want to do that, right?
No, definitely not. I mean, that's why Biden is pushing a $2.3 trillion spending bill.
He's doing the bestest job.
Because of this whole entire hack. Even though he said that, or at least I heard that the government does not want to be involved in this private
SolarWind
transaction.
SolarWind.
Even more interesting is that every single time something has gone wrong for the last 5 years almost, I've heard that it was the Russians.
Oh,
and
yes.
I can only take.
That's what Rachel Maddow said, and I trust her.
I'm almost certain I heard something about
America's unemployment. The Russians.
Putin talking about don't blame the Russians for everything.
Yeah, they're nice.
I can only think of how mad it must be for the Russians that live in America or in Russia, and they're constantly hearing this information about. It's the Russians' fault.
I'm waiting to see if we have those internment camps again.
Can we take a moment to greet our NSA listeners? Hello, boys. Hope you're doing great.
If they're jacking off, it's not a problem.
Oh, they're jacking off to my voice, not to yours. Go, honey. That's right.
So
yeah.
Along with this, with the pipeline stuff. So now you got a gas shortage in the southeast, and gas prices are rising everywhere. And we were talking about inflation on Monday's episode. And I was looking around, and there's a lot of people saying different stuff about this. You got a couple videos I saw where these guys went to lumber yards, and they show like stacks and stacks of lumber. You had The Hill doing a thing where they were saying that it's not really inflation, but and
supply and demand, yada yada. It still has an inflationary effect.
Right. I mean, well, and then
call it whatever you will.
And then there's a whole lot of misuse of the word inflation. Oh, by the way, speaking of misusing words, did you do the etymology?
I have not done it.
I looked it up and I was right.
I like entomology.
You like
right? What? Yeah. Who cares? So
I didn't bother because I didn't care.
Yeah. Because I was looking up something else too, but I was like, oh yeah, I do this. But anyways, so I mean, inflation is another word that gets misused a lot. The price is going up, and this is something we're going to get more into in a future episode. But there you have all these different views and things going on about like what's inflation, what's not, and like prices going up. The Hill did point out that they said that prices went down, but it was really a lot of things went on sale last year because
people were them?
because people were desperate for money, and companies were desperate for money to stay afloat.
Look, I went into a Michael's and I saw their entire spring catalog of product on sale at ridiculous price points.
Right, yeah.
And it wasn't even summer yet. And it's because they couldn't get rid of it. Okay?
Right.
I'm still going into Target. I'm still seeing Easter product on the shelves. Easter's over. It's been over. They can't get rid of their stuff. Mm-hmm. They got candy for days.
People are not buying the same way, the same things. This whole, domestic... what is it, home incarceration, has really, people have really had to rethink, rewrite their values, their priorities, and how they spend their money,
And you have some people saying that that a lot of these supply companies are really just a few different companies, and that they are doing it on purpose to inflate the amount of money they can get. Because
that might be true.
I'm pretty sure there's something to that as well. I mean,
there's only about 7 companies that control all of the retail product that we buy and sell.
Mm-hmm. I mean, well, when I was talking about lumber, I said that the people that actually cut the lumber, that cut the wood and whatnot, they're not charging anymore, and at least not that I heard of. They're not charging anymore or having a problem delivering the lumber at all. But at the same time, too, it could be, because when you have such a shock to the economy like we had in the last year, things happen and it's going to be a ripple effect. So now, we were talking about drivers, people not being able to find drivers. I'm pretty sure that might have something to play into. What do you got, Red?
Well, on the lumber, consider also that major blue cities have experienced such disruption that it's going to create like a very odd demand for lumber. All these small businesses looking to protect their establishments. And when you have truck drivers basically saying, I'm not sure I want to drive to that messy city. New Portland sucks, and there's a whole bunch of other blue cities that are going down the pot. So there's sort of like a different demand for different goods in different ways,
right?
Not before in effect.
That's the other thing that the Hill brought up too, which is a good point. That you have certain places that are opening up more, and because they're opening up, all of a sudden there's a surge of demand. So that's going to cause a raise in prices as well. So with all that, we're all done with the nightmare fuel. So now we can get into today's topic, which is titled "You Shall Not." And the reason why I titled in this manner is because of what I wanted to discuss is really a semantic and philosophical discussion about things that we do by definition, by the denotation of what the words mean, but as connotatively we express that we don't. And the first one I want to start with is a idea that was come upon by 3 communication theorists in the 40s or 50s when they worked for AT&T or whatever it was in that time, and they were named Waslowitz, Bevan, and Jackson, and they came up with this profound idea that you cannot not communicate. And what this means is that you are always communicating ideas, whether it be consciously or unconsciously. That's something completely different. But you're always in a state of communicating something. So even if there's a person on the opposite side of the world that I never talked to before, never knew anything about, I'm still communicating the idea that I don't know about this person. I don't know anything about them. Don't know who they are and whatnot. So that's kind of the analysis I wanted to do on today's episode.
Isn't that more of an inference of data?
Well, yeah, but it's still communication, right? Because
sure,
what is communication?
What you're saying, but what I'm saying is that's you're inferring from the fact that they're not communicating.
Mm-hmm.
Right, not communication is the communication.
Correct.
Right.
So,
by that definition, everything's communication. It's kind of circular.
Right, but
in some regard.
But there are, and what I wanted to do was explore these other things that exist in the same vein, things that you cannot not do inherently because of the nature of what they are. and I have notes of a couple of things, and this is actually a discussion you and I were having a while ago.
Yep.
The idea that you cannot not be religious.
So, I still stand by the fact that you can not be religious, and my point of view on that is the fact that religion is a subset of ideology.
Okay.
And the fact of the matter is that religion is, because it's a subset of ideology, you can always have an ideology, but your ideology may not necessarily be religious. And
okay.
I strongly believe that everyone will always have an ideology, but it doesn't necessarily have to relate to a religion. Because a religion is strongly tied to certain kinds of ideas, but not every ideology is tied to the same things that religion are.
So what are the ideas that religion is tied to?
I find typically that a religion relates to some higher power.
Okay.
That
and what specifically regarding that higher power?
That they are the one who make the rules or create.
So you're saying specifically choosing a higher power?
Sure. Like Egyptians have many of these higher powers that
Ra.
Yes, great game. There's all these different Egyptian gods, and each of them has control over different aspects of the world. Some of them control love, some of them control death, some of them control life.
By the way, this is a chicken franchise pizza.
Very trave.
Okay, go on, Greg.
So, by that nature, they're saying that these things are ruled by these individuals, or that these individuals have control over those particular ideas, I would say, okay? If I don't subscribe to that ideology, that particular religion, that doesn't mean that I'm religious in a different sense. It just doesn't mean that I'm not religious in form of being an Egyptian. And I don't have to be religious to believe that those ideas exist themselves without having some higher power being in charge of them.
I mean, religion is also an adaptation in that it's a rule book, something of a structure in which to order what is right, what is wrong, what are the foundational premises of that particular civilization, that particular time.
So you would say that being religious is having a rubric of
a value rubric to navigate through the work. It's a value rubric through which to navigate through what we agree is reality, what we agree are the considerations at the table, and how to make value judgments, right?
So then by that definition, you would agree with the idea that you cannot not be religious because you always have some sort of value.
Well, I imagine.
I strongly disagree with you.
Well, hold on, I'm asking Brad.
These are questions. I'm not positing anything hard and fast, but for discussion, I mean, you do not have to be religious to operate sort of like in a secular default Christian rubric under which American modern society is operated, right? You don't have to be religious to do that, but it does sort of forms the outline, the container in which we transact in our culture and society.
So
what do you think about that?
What do you mean? So let me get more on this idea of a value rubric. What do you mean by that specifically?
Well, for instance, let's take a super simplified example with the caveat that I'm not Christian, right? Nor am I necessarily religious, because of course that also has different meanings for different people, right?
Right. I'm trying to avoid the connotations
and not making value judgments for other people, right? But we presumably all agree on the 10 Commandments, even if you're not religious, even if you're agnostic. Generally, we tend to agree, murder, unless you have killing a person, homicide is generally not a good idea unless you have a really compelling justification. And we have a justice system to sort out per transaction. Was this a justifiable homicide? What level of penalty are we going to ascribe to this? Jury by peers, sentencing by judge.
So there are religions that do accept those things as...
Agreed. But that happens to be our shared rule book, presumably, right?
Sure.
Which, of course, the leftists are trying to upend, but that's a separate conversation.
There are also ideologies that believe that those are normal and acceptable things.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't live there.
Right.
Okay.
Afghanistan sucks.
with religion specifically, religion subscribes to a particular set of ideas that do not necessarily need to apply for someone else who believes similar things, for them to believe those similar things.
Okay, so what is a religion then?
Religion is a group of people that are believing in that higher power being the one responsible for creating these things.
So you're saying that the requirement of a religion is a group of people practicing it.
I would definitely say that if you had 12, let's go for a round number. If you had 10 people that all believe the same thing, but they all believe different ways of how they got to the same thing, that would not be a religion. But if you had 10 people that believed exactly the same thing, and they also believed that those exact same 10 things were because of one thing, they would be a religion.
Okay, so...
You know, Gregory, your framing of religion is not necessarily inconsistent to what I'm positing. You know, they can be layered atop one another and be completely congruent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's the thing. Why wouldn't that be a religion, right? Because if we look at the First Amendment to the Constitution, it offers each individual the freedom of religion.
Or from
religion as well, by proxy. So why wouldn't one person having their belief system in a certain way not be a religion?
Okay, so Judaism and Christianity, as well as Muslims, all have a similar system of roots. Okay, they all have similar roots to why they believe the things they do. All three of them go in drastically different directions at a certain point in time. All three of them are not the same religion, even though at their root they believe that they all came from the same place.
Right, but you're offering me examples, not fundamentals, though.
What I'm saying is that they are a religion that all have a common belief in mind. Okay, but they are not the same.
Okay.
If I had a group of people that all came to the same conclusions that any one of these individual religions believed in, but they did not have this particular origin that caused it the same origin to do that, I would not call it a religion, because they did not have this higher power that is giving them these beliefs. Now, Western civilization.
Well, let me push back, and I'll get to you in a second, Red. How do you not know that a single individual person does not have a higher power giving them the beliefs as well? And you're also leaving out the individual in your analysis.
In what regard?
Well, because you're talking about groups being the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims.
I do not believe an individual is a religion. I believe an individual can have a set of ideas that if they were to amass more people and get more people into believing them, that eventually could be called a religion itself. But I do not believe that the individual by itself would be following a religion. They would be following an ideology. I believe a religion, because I believe it is a subset of ideology, I believe a religion is sort of the next step from an ideology to take in some regards, because if you start gathering a lot of people behind your ideas,
right,
and you get them all to believe the same thing, and there is some sort of story that this person has come up with that's why they believe these things, that would eventually evolve into what is called a religion. I do not believe, though, that the religion itself exists before these ideas have solidified amongst multiple people.
What do you got, Red?
Well, not disagreeing with you, Gregory, but looking at it from a different vantage point, that I agree with you that religion is a form of ideology, and religion forms sort of like a rubric, a structure of value and hierarchy, so that you can tell right from wrong. It's a system of belief, right?
Absolutely.
And it supports other massive adaptations, such as, society. It's one big pillar of what comprises a society, a much larger, more complex system of cities organized under a nation. Now, a nation does not per se need to have the same religion throughout, but it does need to have enough shared values in within the nation to kind of hold it all together, so that you can have pretty much congruent, consistent, helpful, reinforcing different religious expression within it, atop a substrate of shared values such as a First Amendment freedom of assembly, individual speech, and freedom to and from religion, right? So it kind of points to why multiculturalism kind of doesn't work, because if you have additions from other cultural vantage points that would bring in a different value system, like no, we don't like freedom of speech and there's no such thing as an individual, then it kind of takes away the whole notion of, well, which is right and wrong, which way is north or south. How do we navigate in a shared a system of understanding so that we can get along and get stuff done?
So this is why I say an ideology is. So an ideology is the purest of an idea.
Mm-hmm.
System of ideas. It's
sure,
not just
that's
one.
That's what I mean. It's the purest system of ideas. It doesn't necessarily.
It's a big umbrella term.
To any particular being that is responsible for why these ideas have become one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It is very loose and pure in that there's possibly a reason for why these ideas have become a system together, but it's not ascribing to any higher power being the one responsible for why this is the system that they believe.
Right. So if you have this system of ideas, right, this complex idea machine that forms that rubric, that religion, it can be one of the pillars supporting a society. You can have individuals in it that don't buy into, say, the father figure in the sky, okay? You don't need that, as long as people are pretty much operating pretty much on the share rule book of this is right from wrong, these are the values that we prize, this is the way that we're going to, conduct business, that sort of substrate, elemental, foundational stuff that makes a society function.
So here's a question, because you guys bring up a higher power and whatnot, and
it kind of becomes irrelevant whether there's a higher power or not.
Well,
I guess I'm saying that the system of ideas is the higher power in a form.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is that
well then, so there. Because
in order to decide whether or not there is a deity, you first have to decide. I mean, to decide which deity you're going to follow, you first have to decide whether or not there is a deity.
I say we follow Thor. I want a Thor. I want a Scottish Thor, okay?
A Scottish Thor.
I want kilts. I want a lot of kilts. I want men to sit the fuck down with kilts.
By the way,
that's my higher power right there.
With that being said, if Count Dankula ever watches this, please dress up as Thor with a kilt and send it to us. We would much appreciate it. Red will love you forever.
Oh my God.
So,
yeah, baby.
We've been talking a lot about religion, but
yeah, I was going to move on to the next one.
As I said, ideologies can evolve into a religion, but I also think political movements, as well as scientific movements, are another evolution of ideology.
Mm-hmm.
And they're completely separate from religion.
But they work together too.
They
interact.
Do, but that doesn't mean that they're not separate types of things.
Right.
Agreed.
So
and there's friction among them, right, Gregory? And some of that friction is productive.
Ideologies clash with each other because they all have different roots in why they believe what they believe, and sometimes their roots have inconsistencies with another. So if a religion says, well, it must be because someone said so, and a scientific ideology says it must be because we've proven through experimentation, that's why we believe this is what's
See,
true.
I don't necessarily see the need for there to be a conflict per se, because you can reconcile different certain idea sets, certain systems of thinking.
I don't disagree with you on that,
mm-hmm.
but the problem is that, and it tends to happen a lot with religious
mm-hmm.
ideologies, is that religious ideologies tend to ignore the fact that there are constants and things that are proofs in reality.
True.
Things that you can verifiably see, and you can experiment and repeat the result over and over and over again.
I think we're differing on the methodology, right? I think you're making.
What I'm saying is that in religions, you have oftentimes that people will just say it is because someone told me
Oh,
it is. And
it is by assertion versus it is because we have
by
engaged
rather
in
than
the
discovery.
scientific process
they tend to ignore the fact that
approach
there
proof.
are ways of coming to those conclusions through verifiable methods. And they just say, well, it doesn't matter to me if there's a verifiable method. I know it's true because someone told me it's true and my religion says it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And so they tend to ignore the hard sciences that can prove these things or offer evidence to that it being that's why it is.
Well, all right. So let's move on to the next one I have. The next idea I have is that you cannot not be political. Let's start with you on this one, Red. What do you say about that?
What do you mean you cannot not be political?
So,
how are you defining political?
Right,
I'm
that starts with
truthfully
the question.
having a hard time in conversations where the meaning of keywords is assumed, and that gets a little sticky
and
in
that's
this
exactly...
world where there's a lot of asserted deconstruction, I read in destruction, where dictionaries are getting rewritten in real time to support ideology and narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So can we please define what you mean by...
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why, even with religious, I want to define religious at start. So how would you define the word political in a denotative sense, not a connotative sense, a denotative sense?
Well, I don't know what the hell you mean by that. Are you asking me to define?
So connotation means definition based off what you associate it with and whatnot, whereas denotation is a hard line kind of utility definition.
Well, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here, but let me take a crack at it, and I'm going to pose it more in terms of a question for exploration, rather than it asserting it is one thing. But what is political? I think political has to do with the friction between different ideas, a system of resolving disputes. Of course, it does touch on war, but it is an alternative to resolving differences by going outside and bashing each other's heads, right?
Well, let's focus this on a more individual level. Like, how is a person, an individual, political? What would you say makes an individual political, or what makes an individual not political?
I think, and perhaps I'm getting overly abstract here.
No, that's fine. I mean, that's the whole point of this episode.
Two considerations that come to mind, I don't know that they're exclusive, is one, what are their goals? What are their priorities?
Mm-hmm.
And number two, how do you navigate between the present state and the imagined should-be step defined by those goals? And one, let me give you an example, and then you can interrupt me, damn it. One example is that, in a weird way, frequently Democrats have, attractive goals, right? Let's make sure everybody's covered by healthcare, and that all sounds all great. Except there's no real concrete way to get there, and the proposed solutions don't consider human motivation, right? Whereas Republicans, these are sweeping generalizations. Yes, there are exceptions, and yes, there's a case to be made that Republicans and Democrats are same difference, but Republicans tend to think more in terms of, okay, how do we do it? How do we pay for it? How does that work with what already is on the ground? You know what I mean? It's
well,
in
that sense, I would say when it suits them.
Precisely. Please understand that everything I'm saying has sweeping generalizations, many exceptions, but just to kind of talk in terms of high-level direction for the purposes of this exploration.
So I want to step in on this.
Go for it, baby.
I should say.
You don't want to step in the shit?
No,
step in it, baby.
We've already been there. We're knee deep in it. One of my favorite settings in Doom. Knee deep. So I believe that someone can be not political, but I also believe that most people are political by default.
Well, I mean, if we go by with what Red was saying, is having ideas of how things should be, and then the navigation of those ideas with other people, that's something that is inherent to the human experience.
So this goes back to the fact that politics is another form of ideology.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Just by having a thought and you believing that it is one way or another, you are slowly defining how you think, and you're defining how you're going to interact with the world at large. Okay? Now, being political specifically to me, is that you are taking a hard stance on certain ideas, certain laws that may or may not exist. You're taking these stances in a sense so that way you can actually put them forward to get them to be passed into actual law, or to remove laws that already exist, or thoughts that already exist in society from being enforced in some way. Being political is an active thought process, and it's something you have to actively be doing. You cannot be passively political, because if you're passively political, you're just not doing stuff to advance your particular
But wouldn't that
ideas.
Inherently be a political action? Because you're deciding not to advance your idea? Isn't that a choice not to advance your idea?
It is a choice to not advance your idea, but that means you're not being political.
That means you're letting others navigate for you.
Well, that's being lazy. If you
Okay, but how is that not being political though? Because you're
not pushing those ideas on people.
But you're actively transferring your agency to somebody else.
What the man said. What the man inadvertently,
You're not transferring your agency onto someone else by choosing not to do something.
You're abandoning your agency, right? So if somebody else picks it up for you.
That doesn't mean you're transferring your agency to someone else, though.
Same effect. I think we're
it has
potato
the same
potato.
Effect, but it's a difference of what you're actually doing. Okay?
Potato potato.
Because to be political, you have to be.
This is good. I'm liking this. This is fun.
To be political, you have to be active in what you're proposing to happen. Otherwise, you're just sitting there doing nothing. Now, doing nothing is an action that you can take.
Okay.
It is a choice that you can make.
I think you're defeating your own argument.
No, I am not. But it does not necessarily mean by not doing something that you are responsible for someone else to do something. Okay? Let's put it this way. If I choose not to fight for some right.
Okay.
Okay.
You're still making a choice.
I'm still making a choice.
Right.
But I'm not telling someone else that they should do it.
Okay.
However, it doesn't stop the other person from saying, Gregory's quiet, then I'm going to make whatever assertions are going to be beneficial to my position or interests. And if they happen to damage Gregory's interests, you know what? Fuck him. He's quiet. He's a pussy.
If I continue to ignore it, that means I'm still not being political. I have chosen to ignore the fact that these opposing ideas will hurt me, and that they will take away any rights that I assume that I have or don't have at that time.
So
which reminds me of the quote, rights not exercised are rights potentially lost.
So let you define what it means to be political then, Greg.
To be political is to take a stance on an idea and to try and get some sort of law pushed forward that defends your idea, in that it either punishes people for doing it or that it rewards people for not doing it, or something in that regard.
Then let me ask you this. Would deciding that you don't have to do anything be actively taking a stance on the idea that you don't have to do anything?
No.
Why not?
Because I have to push forward to actually do it.
Well, that's still making a decision. What do you got, Red?
You have to be active in order to be political.
What do you got, Red?
Can I make a suggested revision, Gregory, on what you said?
You got it.
And this is, think about this, because it's not necessarily about advocating for a law. Frequently, law's part of it, but what is the greater part, I think, is the administration of law, right? What the executive agencies do, which happens to be the least democratic, least transparent, least visible aspect of the power of government that more often than not tends to affect our lives.
I'm so glad you mentioned the word government.
I want to touch on something.
Government.
I want to say something with regards to the example that you just brought up.
Yeah.
So if I want there to be a law that says that I don't have to do anything, okay, I would have to fight to get that law to begin with.
Okay.
I would have to go against my own creed just to ensure that my creed is allowed to exist. If I choose not to do that, and I say I believe personally that I don't have to do anything I don't want to do, but I don't push for there to be a law that says I don't have to do anything I don't want to do, then I have not fought for any political idea. Even though I hold an idea in my mind that I don't have to do anything, my personal belief is I'm not responsible for your shit, so I don't have to do your shit.
Okay, so let me ask you this question then, Greg. So if there becomes a law, if gets enacted legislation that says you have to do something, but you decide I'm not going to do that because that's the world I want to live in, is that not making a political action?
It's only political action if I somehow am able to get it publicized in such a way that actually calls attention to the fact that I am not doing something, specifically to go against the fact that I don't want to do something.
So that's an interesting thing you say, because you're relating, because this is the same thing with religion too, because you're basing both of them on the idea of there being multiple people involved and not so much on the individual. 1 second, what do you got, Red?
Question again. So is this a fair restatement of your position, Gregory, that being political is advocacy in a direction that you desire?
Yes. I would 100% agree with that.
I like to get things down to as few simple words as possible. I'm glad I was able to do that with you.
So here's the idea, right? Because, and here's the, why I say, also you cannot not be religious as well. It stems back to the whole idea that you cannot not communicate. So you deciding not to do anything is communication of your political ideology. You believing, even whether or not there is a deity or not, is a communication of your religious ideology.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I wonder, Charles, if it's the case that you are ascribing more meaning and intent to people's actions than actually is there.
Well, I mean,
because you're ignoring, you're assuming that every person has agency and exercises it. The reality is that most people don't assume their agency and certainly don't exercise it.
I'm looking at this from a purely mathematical standpoint.
Oh, shit, math. Fuck.
Well, I mean, the whole idea is that, zero, you learn early in math that the idea that zero is no value or absence. But that's a very abstract
Zero
idea.
is still a value.
Right. The fact
Correct.
is that zero is still a value. It's just not a value of the thing that you're looking for.
It's an exception to the rule.
It is unique. Correct, Gregory, because zero lies between two odd numbers, but yet zero is not even.
Zero is not an absence of value. It's an absence of a value that you are looking for. Okay? And that is a very important distinction. And that's how this whole idea, that started with that you cannot not communicate, ties into the idea of religion and politics, because whether you have an action that people notice or not, you still are taking action. You are still existing, right?
So you're saying that are you saying that existing is a political act, Charles? By your logic, that would be the case, and I have a hard time digesting that.
What I will say here, rather,
I gotta think about that one.
I believe that you cannot not take an action, okay?
Right.
Because by not taking an action, you're taking an action. However,
it has the effect of making a decision, right? Not making a decision has the same effect.
By not making a decision, you are making a decision.
Yeah.
Right.
That's. I always say there's an exception to every rule, in that there is always the ability to contradict it. But with cannot communicate, you definitely cannot not communicate.
Right.
Okay. But the individual's understanding of what you're not communicating is inferred based upon how they think. Okay.
Or whether they're paying attention. Or whether they're paying attention, because your advocacy is going to amount to exactly zero if you don't have anybody on the receiving end of it. It's just going to be howling at the wind.
What I'm trying to draw a distinction of is the distinction between perception and action. Let me give you an example. Tetris, right?
Sure.
And I'll show you how.
Bump.
That was Mario, but that was okay. So
that's because I'm cool.
I will show you. I'm going to explain the idea of. And you guys may agree or disagree. It's a thought experiment. How playing Tetris can be political. If I am playing,
no, it can't.
Hold on, wait till you hear first.
You can make it political, but just
Hold
by
on.
playing it. Okay.
Wait, let me get the popcorn. Hold on, I got to get the popcorn on this bullshit. Hold on.
So if I decide I want to play the game Tetris, that is a political act that not only
radical.
It's not political.
I'm presenting a thought experiment.
Go for it.
So let's assume that it's a political act that in that, number one, it's okay for me to play Tetris. I live in a society that it's okay for me to play Tetris, or I believe that I should be in a society that it should be okay to play Tetris.
Okay, there's a lot of suppositions there. that you put into that statement.
Right.
By playing Tetris, you are not being political.
Okay.
Even though you live in a society that allows you to play Tetris, does not mean that by playing it or not playing it, you're being political.
Am I not communicating the idea that I agree that it's a good idea that I live in a society that I should be playing Tetris?
No,
playing Tetris is not going to make a difference in resolving questions of what should that society do or not.
I'm talking about.
I would say it's not political for that reason.
The individual.
That's not what you're saying by playing Tetris. By playing Tetris, you're saying, at least I would be saying.
All right. What is the idea being communicated by playing Tetris?
The idea being communicated by playing Tetris is that I have time to waste and I want to learn a game that looks interesting. And I've decided that Tetris is that game I want to learn to play. Okay? I'm not at all communicating that I believe we should be allowed to play video games. Although I believe we should be allowed to play video games.
And it doesn't require another player. You can play Tetris by yourself and not bug anybody.
That's
by playing video games, you are not making a statement that you should be allowed to play video games. You're not making a statement about anything to do with video games other than that you want to play a video game and you want to play this video game. But that statement doesn't necessarily say that you believe video games should be allowed to be played.
So in other words, the fact that you can do something is not per se a statement that you support or not support that thing.
Correct.
Okay.
I believe. I think that's what I was getting at.
Okay. I just want to make sure I was understanding.
Why do the thing if you don't support it then?
Because it's fun.
You might decide to do it anyways.
Okay.
Look, I respect a number of people that I think are awful, awful individuals.
Okay.
Am I one of them?
Tom Cruise's ability to act, even though I think he's a disgusting individual, and I think his ideas on religion and all that are just terrible.
Yeah, he's a cool.
But I think he's a great actor, and I respect his ability to act. I think most truck drivers are awful human beings because they cut me off all the time. But I also respect the fact that they can drive a truck in some capacity because I have not learned how to drive a truck. And if they can make a turn well, I respect the fact that they can make that turn well. Now, if I ever learned how to drive a truck and I learned that it was actually very easy to do these things, I might respect their ability to drive that truck a little bit less. But until I've learned to drive that truck, I respect the fact that they can drive a bus or a truck or any of these much bigger, bulkier vehicles.
All right. Finish off, Red.
You're bringing up two very interesting,
all right, well, hurry up.
distinct
Less
points.
than a minute.
Right. Okay. Fine. Everybody, go out, get laid, have a great time. That's my summary. Since we don't have time for my deeper point, just go out and get laid.
I didn't get to everything I wanted to get to either, but that's fine.
Gregory seems to be all for it, right?
Absolutely.
That's all the time we have for this episode. Be sure to check out our next episode, which is titled Bizarre Alien Ghosts.
Woohoo!
Or not. Fuck you either way.
Nah. And with that said, once again, I am Greg.
And I am Charles.
Remember to never question.
Never ask for proof.
And always believe what you're told by the news and politicians.
No matter what. Now go back to sleep, fuckers. Good night, fellow human. You'll wake up tomorrow to cause more destruction and bring much more sorrow. You'll go out and smile and pretend you are good. But once you get crossed, you'll don a black hood. You'll maim and you'll rend all while you pretend that you are some kind of hero. You can't face the truth and you'll stay aloof to the fact that you're a zero. You'll sit and stay glued to a spoon-feeding tube so that you can believe you're the best. You'll obey and be bribed by a campaigner's lies. All throughout the COVID Murder Fest. I hate you all.